Did you know that flying creatures are at risk these days? Beekeepers have been reporting huge losses of honeybees every spring since about 2006. Colony collapse disorder is the name of this new problem, and the average annual loss for beekeepers over the winter since that time has been about 30%, with some areas losing up to 90% of their bees. Bees are not the only ones having trouble. Monarch butterflies have a 2-year reproductive cycle on their amazing migratory flight from Canada to Mexico and back. But their numbers have been radically reduced, and butterfly lovers everywhere are desperate to save them before they become extinct. Scientists are still examining all of the causes, but it is clear that the increased pesticide use, climate change, and declining habitat are big contributors to the problem. If native habitat, where insects eat and live, are replaced by buildings, parking lots, and huge areas of one-crop fields, there won't be enough places to support these beautiful and vital insects. Honeybees are responsible for pollinating a lot of our food crops in general, and for some crops like almonds, they are responsible for pollinating almost 100% of the trees. The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates that about 1 mouthful in 3 in our diet directly or indirectly benefits from honeybee pollination. The bees' continued decline would be disastrous for food production in the United States. There are also a number of other wild pollinators that play an important role. Many people who are interested in insects are also interested in birds. Birds can help control unwanted pests in your yard, as well as provide you with lots of entertainment. In addition to having the right kinds of food and water available for birds, it's also important to provide them with habitat to feel safe while feeding and nesting. And in case you haven't made the connection yet, many birds need to eat insects to stay alive. How did I become interested in this topic myself? My husband and I have focused most of our efforts over the years on a vegetable garden, with some favorite flowers thrown in around the edges for fun. But we have attempted beekeeping twice, and that got us to thinking more about how to have plants blooming through the spring, summer, and fall to provide the bees with pollen. The more I looked into it, the more I learned that native plants are the best for the local pollinators, as well as bees and insects that migrate through the area. I let my enthusiasm run away with me in the summer of 2014, and I bought a bunch of native plants without really having the planting areas prepared. But I planted through the summer and late into the fall, and I just have to wait for the spring and summer to come this year before I will know how many of them made it through the cold winter. I'm hoping they're tough enough to survive. There are ways that you can help the birds and the bees and the butterflies too by taking a look around your yard and making some improvements that will provide healthy habitat for insects as well as providing beauty for humans. Don't use pesticides in your yard. Many pesticides kill the insects you don't like, along with all the other insects around. Some pesticides are worse than others when it comes to killing beneficial insects. Some remain in a plant's pollen and is therefore transferred to a whole honeybee colony, and these pesticides seem to play a major part in the colony collapse disorder affecting honeybees. There are resources online to help you identify which pesticides to avoid. If you tend to buy your garden plants from big box stores, do some research and consider other alternatives. Some of these stores use pesticides that are taken up into all parts of the plant and linger long after you buy them and put them in your yard. Choosing native plants is best for local pollinators. Plants and bugs evolve together in relationship, so while any flower can look pretty, the native plants are generally the best for the insects that live in your area. You don't have to be a purist. I have favorite flowers that aren't natives that I'm not going to give up. But you can become knowledgeable about what plants are best for your area. I've seen a statistic in some of the research that I've done that sounds good to me. Aim for planting 75% native plants. Because native plants are adapted to the local weather conditions, they require less work on your part, less watering, and can withstand the weather extremes better. Do some research before you buy plants. There are great websites for finding out which plants are native to your area, and they have separate lists for dry and wet, sunny and shady sections of your yard. Here are some suggestions for central and northern New York. If you're going to plant perennials, take the time to prepare the garden beds before buying the plants. No matter what sunlight and watering conditions the plants prefer, all plants do better if they are fed well. Dig up the area where you will be planting and add in appropriate nutrients such as compost and decomposed manure. You can buy this in bags at the store and it doesn't stink at all. Soil that is very heavy and has a lot of clay can benefit from some sand mixed in. After you finish planting, mulch the soil around the plants to help with moisture retention, even temperatures, and the mulch will eventually break down and help amend the soil. You can even create a monarch way station by planting things that are specifically helpful to monarch butterflies. If you're especially enthusiastic about monarch butterflies, you can plant things that monarchs like to eat, like milkweed, purple coneflowers, zinnias, dahlias, Joe Pyeweed, and others. If you meet certain criteria, you can have your yard designated as an official monarch way station. Native milkweeds are especially important because it is the only plant that monarch caterpillars can eat. If you have a yard, leave some brush piles or weedy areas in the corners. This creates habitat for birds and insects to live in. They need things to eat as well as places to live. Honeybees may require sophisticated hives, but many other pollinators have simpler housing needs, such as hollow stems and protected places to burrow underground. Birds need grass and twigs to build their nests, and they prefer some brush cover for protection while they eat. If you don't have the ability to plant things yourself, support organizations and people who do. If you don't have a yard or the ability to plant a lot of plants where you live, you can still help support birds and insects in a few ways. First of all, you can educate yourself and others about the ways in which humans are affecting the environment. You can buy honey and food from local farmers who are using sustainable growing practices. And if you have some spare cash, you can make donations to groups that you support. The birds and the bees will thank you.